Hey everyone, Timber Master here, and in this video today, I'm going to be going over why fasting and intermittent fasting work for weight loss and why these two things are arguably the fastest ways to lower your insulin levels so you can start to burn fat fast, effectively, and sustainably. So we are going to be going over how we've gotten fat over time, how we actually get fat, and how intermittent fasting and fasting are two of the most effective ways to start burning fat. Then I'm going to give you my recommendations on exactly what to do with your intermittent fasting and fasting schedules. And then lastly, I'm going to give you a pro tip that you can utilize to help you with your intermittent fasting and fasting schedule. Also, you can lose weight fast, and keep that weight off forever. Now, when it comes to us gaining weight over time, well, it's 2020 right now, and as of today, we weigh 30 plus pounds more per person than we did in 1960. So what happened during the 60-year time period? Well, the first thing that happened was in the 1960s, we adopted this low-fat, high-carb nutrition plan. So at this point, we started to consume more carbohydrates. So about 45 to 65% of our entire nutrition was coming from carbs. The second thing that happened was our eating frequency increased. So by the 1980s, a lot of processed food was coming out, and this gave us an opportunity to start snacking and grazing and eating all day. So we would wake up early in the morning, we would have our breakfast, and we would essentially just not stop eating throughout the entire day until we went to bed. So when it comes to carbohydrates and making us fat, we know that when we eat carbohydrates, we see elevations in insulin, and this insulin is going to be putting us in a fat storage state, or at the very least, it's going to be preventing us from burning fat. And we also know that people with a higher body fat percentage typically have higher resting levels of insulin, and people with lower body fat percentages typically have lower resting levels of insulin. And separately, we also have the insulin index. And when it comes to the insulin index, this is a way for us to measure and identify how much insulin is being produced when we eat a certain food. So when we look at the insulin index, we see measurements every 15 minutes for 2 hours. And what we know is that we typically see the largest increase in insulin at that around 60-minute mark. But it then begins to taper off slowly. So there's a slow decline after that 60-minute mark. So what are our current eating habits now? So when it comes to the standard American diet, we're kind of looking at about 45 to 65% of our entire nutrition is coming from carbohydrates. A lot of us are eating 3 meals per day, plus snacking in between. We might even have dessert at the end of the day. Some of us are even eating 5 to 6 meals per day. And if we're looking at this higher carbohydrate nutrition plan plus eating throughout the entire day, we're going to be running into one big problem, and that problem is constantly elevated levels of insulin. So the thing to remember here is that when we've eaten, after about 60 minutes, we're seeing that peak elevation in insulin, and then it slowly tapers off. But if we're eating every 2 to 3 hours, we're really not letting our insulin levels return to their baseline. So if we're getting up and eating at 7 in the morning and eating a meal or snack every 2 to 3 hours the entire day and don't finish until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, then our insulin levels are going to be elevated throughout the entire day. And remember that when we have constantly elevated levels of insulin, our body is going to be in a fat storage state, or at the very least, we're not going to be able to burn fat at all. Okay, so if this is making sense to you, go ahead and hit that like button, or If it's not really making sense, please ask a question in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so how to lose weight? Well, what we need to do in order to lose weight is we have to focus on lowering our insulin levels, because we know that people who have lower body fat percentages will have lower insulin levels. So if we can lower our insulin levels, then we are going to be able to start that fat burning process. Now, the fastest way to lower your insulin levels so you can start burning fat is to start an intermittent fasting and a fasting program. So with intermittent fasting, that just means that you're eating during a shortened window during the day. So for example, the 16-8 schedule is really popular. So you're really only eating during an 8-hour window and then not eating for the rest of the 16 hours. And when it comes to fasting, that just means that window of not eating is just gonna be even longer. So it could be 24 hours, it could be 36, it could be 48 hours. Anything longer than a day or two. So when we're fasting or doing intermittent fasting, what is this actually doing to our body? Well, because we're not eating any food, we're not eating any protein, we're not eating any carbs, we're not eating any fat, we're not gonna be seeing any elevations in insulin. So this not eating is going to cause our insulin levels to decline naturally, and that is exactly how we're going to start to burn fat. Now, the big question is, how should I start my fasting and intermittent fasting program? Well, here is a good recommendation that I have for you. What you can do is just start with intermittent fasting, and you can do that 7 days a week and do the 16-8 schedule. And once you get a little bit comfortable with that, then I suggest that you try one 24-hour fast, and try that at least once a week, and then intermittent fast the rest of the week. See if you can stick with that process, and then play around with it too, because you might actually get pretty good at intermittent fasting too. So if you can extend that fast a little bit longer, say 17, 18, 19 hours, then that means you're just gonna be burning fat even longer. And I think if you get really ambitious, you can do 2 24-hour fasts a week and 5 intermittent fasting days. But I think it's really important to pay attention to your body. So if you feel like you're getting really hungry, then go ahead and eat. Listen to yourself, listen to your body. Your body is smart, it's intelligent, it knows the right things to do. This isn't something where you have to push yourself and use willpower to drive yourself to not eat. So remember, just listen to your body. All right, so now for the pro tip. Well, I actually have 2 for you. So when it comes to fasting and intermittent fasting, our goal is to decrease and reduce our insulin levels, right? So what's one other way that we can actually reduce our insulin levels as well? Well, that is reduce your carbohydrate consumption, because we know that carbohydrates elevate your insulin levels the most. So if we can couple intermittent fasting and fasting with carbohydrate reduction, then we're gonna see even lower levels of insulin. And that means we're gonna be able to burn even more fat. Now for the other pro tip that I have for you, well, that is to not snack at all. So on your intermittent fasting days, if you can just keep it to 2 to 3 meals that day, and then on your fasting day, just have 1 meal, then you're gonna be in awesome shape. Because remember, it's that eating frequency that's gonna cause our insulin levels to rise and elevate, and that's exactly what we don't want to have happen. All right, so remember that too much insulin is gonna make us store fat, or it's gonna prevent us from burning fat. So we wanna make sure that our insulin levels are low. So if we're doing intermittent fasting and fasting, then that is a great natural way for us to lower our insulin levels. And if we couple that with a low carb nutrition plan and only have anywhere between 1 and 3 meals a day, depending on your fasting and intermittent fasting schedule, then you're gonna be in awesome shape, and you're gonna start to burn fat, you're gonna start to lose weight, and you're gonna start to feel great. Well, if you love this video and you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about how carbohydrates make you fat and how cutting carbs to lose weight is really, really effective, then watch this video right here. All right, thanks so much for checking out this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one.